If you're not doing this with your celery leaves, then you, my friend, are missing out. Oftentimes, there are multiple ways to harvest and preserve food, and celery leaves is just one of the examples, but the one that I'm going to share with you today. So here you can see I've got a couple different varieties of celery. These were planted a little bit earlier, and so I've actually got some that are trying to bolt and to go to seed. So I'm just gonna come through and grab some of these really nice, bright, vibrant green celery leaves, and we're actually going to be harvesting just the leaves here. So you want to rinse your celery leaves and then get them dried off. So I just have got a really nice absorbent tea towel here. These have been drying. And then for this method particular, we are going to just kind of roughly chop these, mainly because we need to get a volume amount, and it's going to be more accurate if these are in a rough chopped format rather than whole leaves. That's good enough because these are going to be going into the food processor. This is just more for our measuring capabilities. So we're gonna stuff those into the Pyrex cup here. So there are many different ways to preserve food. If you caught my video a couple of weeks back where we went over them, you heard me talk about them. But this particular is actually, we are using salt as the mechanism to preserve these and make celery salt, but we are using the raw leaves. You'll see a lot of celery salt, which you can absolutely do, where you have dehydrated the leaves ahead of time and then put them in powdered form, and then you're just mixing them in with the salt. So that's creating a flavored salt, which is lovely, and I like to do that too, but the salt isn't actually the preservation method, and that means dehydration is. But this creates a really nice, strong celery flavor, and you can use this with pretty much any of your green leafy herbs. I do have a video and recipe showing you how to do it with basil, which is phenomenal, but today we're gonna be doing our celery. So I'm gonna just kind of press this down so I'm getting a little bit more accurate reading here. And so that is about right at a half cup. So for this method, we're gonna go ahead and put our half a cup of rough chopped celery leaves. We're doing 4 parts celery leaves to 1 part salt. So this ratio is gonna be heavily flavored towards the celery and will be really bright. So that means I need 1/8 of a cup of salt to keep those ratios, which is 2 tablespoons. So I just have out here my big bucket of Redmond's real salt. This is the salt that I use for all of my preserving, from canning to fermenting to salt curing to cooking. Any way that you're gonna use salt, this is how I do it, and I just grab it. I do have a coupon code, but Redmond's real salt sells this in 10-pound buckets, and I actually need to refill my salt shaker in the cupboard, so I just went ahead and grabbed the big old bucket for this. Okay, so now we've got that salt added to our celery, and we want to pulverize and blend this all together. So I'm just gonna put this on the on with our food processor. All right, now you're gonna see, look at this, you guys. Oh, it smells so good. So here is, you can see all of that ground up, really nice and fine. That's just a little bit bigger chunk of a leaf, so I can go ahead if I want to and just pull out a few of those bigger ones, or just pulse this for a few more minutes. But just look at that. Oh, I wish you could smell it. It smells phenomenal right now. So because the method that we use for this one is definitely higher concentration on the green leafy matter, and as you can see, it is fresh. This is a version that we're going to be storing for long-term storage in the fridge. So now we're just gonna transfer this to a small glass jar. I just like to use the little jelly jars here. Now there's different ratios that you can do. In fact, I have a whole blog post that has a lot of different ratios that you can use with the salt to preserve your different green leafy herbs. Some of them are shelf stable and some of them are not. The advantage to using this, where it's a higher concentration of the herb to the salt, is one, it's not quite so salty, and you just would use this for seasoning. It's when you're using a dish that would have celery or celery salt, you wouldn't use any other regular salt. This is both your celery and your salt flavoring. So you would go ahead and use it, but it keeps it nice and bright, and it's stronger flavored of celery versus really strong salt flavoring. But because we don't have as much salt in here to keep that bright flavor, it does need to be kept at a cool temperature. So your fridge is an ideal spot if you are getting closer to winter months or whatever, and you have a cooler outdoor storage or a root cellar, etc., then that would be somewhere that you could keep it. But this will keep. I have had my basil salt using the same method. I've had a jar that got tucked into the back of the fridge. Anybody else have that happen? And didn't find it until a year later, and it was still absolutely good to go, and that same really nice bright flavor that you just don't get if you are using regular dehydrated herbs.